Jake Morrison stood very still in the big white room. His uniform was clean and pressed. His boots were shiny. He tried not to move even a little bit. Today was the most important day in human history, and he was just a regular soldier standing guard. The room was huge. White walls went up to a very high ceiling. Big windows showed the stars outside. This was the UES Liberty, the biggest and best ship humans had ever built. Jake had been on this ship for 6 months, but he still felt amazed when he looked out at space. Captain Lisa Hayes walked back and forth in front of the door. She looked nervous. Jake had never seen the captain nervous before. She was always calm and strong. But today was different. Today humans were going to meet aliens for the first time. "Remember," Captain Hayes said to Jake and the other guards, "these aliens are our guests. Be polite. Don't stare. Don't make any sudden moves. This meeting could decide if humans and aliens become friends or enemies." Jake nodded. He understood how important this was. For years, humans had wondered if they were alone in space. Now they knew they weren't. The Zephyrian Empire had sent a message to Earth. They wanted to meet. They wanted to talk about peace and trade. The big doors at the end of the room started to open. Jake felt his heart beat faster. He had seen pictures of the aliens, but seeing them in real life would be different. The first alien walked through the door. Jake tried not to stare, but it was hard. The alien was tall and thin. Its skin was purple like a sunset. Strange patterns of light moved under its skin, like tiny stars. It wore long, flowing clothes that seemed to shine. More aliens came through the door. They all looked similar but different, like how humans were similar but different from each other. Some were taller, some shorter. Some had brighter lights under their skin. Then she walked in. Jake had read about her in the files. Princess Kirathel, daughter of the Zephyrian Emperor. She was important, like a human president's daughter would be important. She was supposed to be smart and kind. The files said she had studied human language for months to prepare for this meeting. The princess was beautiful, but not in a human way. Her skin was a deeper purple than the others. The lights under her skin moved in complex patterns that seemed to match her mood. Her eyes were large and golden, like looking into liquid metal. She wore a crown made of what looked like crystal. She walked with confidence. Her head was high. She looked around the room, taking in everything. Her golden eyes moved from wall to wall, from human to human. Then her eyes found Jake. Everything stopped. Princess Kirathel stopped walking so suddenly that the alien behind her almost bumped into her. Her golden eyes went wide. Her mouth opened, a little. The lights under her skin started moving faster, brighter. Jake didn't know what to do. Was he supposed to look away? Had he done something wrong? He tried to remember the rules Captain Hayes had told them. Don't stare. But the princess was staring at him. The other aliens noticed that their princess had stopped. They started whispering to each other in their own language. It sounded like music mixed with the sound of wind through trees. But their whispers sounded worried. Captain Hayes stepped forward. "Your Highness, welcome to the UES Liberty. We are honored by your visit." The princess didn't answer. She was still staring at Jake. She took a step toward him, then another. The aliens behind her looked very worried now. One of them, an old alien with many jewels on his clothes, said something sharp in their language. Princess Kirathel said something back, but she didn't look away from Jake. Her voice sounded shaky, like she was scared or excited or both. "Impossible," she said in English. Her voice had an accent, but her English was very good. "You are, but how can this be?" Jake wanted to ask what she meant, but he was just a guard. He wasn't supposed to talk unless someone asked him a direct question. Captain Hayes looked confused and a little worried. "Your Highness," Captain Hayes said, "is there a problem? Have we done something to offend you?" The princess finally looked away from Jake. She seemed to remember where she was and what she was supposed to be doing. The lights under her skin slowed down a little. "No," she said quickly. "No problem. I was just surprised. Meeting humans for the first time is very overwhelming." But Jake could tell she was not telling the truth. The way she had looked at him wasn't the way someone looks at a stranger. It was the way someone looks at a person they know very well. It was the way someone looks at a ghost. The meeting went on. The princess and Captain Hayes talked about trade and friendship between their peoples. The aliens showed holographic pictures of their worlds. The humans showed pictures of Earth. Everyone was polite and careful with their words. But through it all, Jake felt the princess watching him. When he thought no one was looking, he would glance at her. Every time, she was already looking at him. Her golden eyes seemed to be trying to solve a puzzle, and Jake was the missing piece. The other aliens noticed too. The old alien with the jewels kept whispering to the princess. A younger alien, maybe a scientist based on the instruments he carried, kept looking between Jake and some kind of small device in his hand. The meeting lasted for 2 hours. When it was over, the aliens were shown to their guest rooms on the ship. They would stay for a week, learning about humans and sharing information about their own people. As the aliens filed out of the room, Princess Kirathel walked past Jake. For just a moment, she stopped next to him. "What is your name?" she asked quietly. "Lieutenant Jake Morrison, Your Highness," he answered. She repeated his name slowly, like she was tasting each sound. Jake Morrison. Then she looked directly into his eyes. "We will talk again soon, Jake Morrison. There are things I must understand." Then she was gone, following the other aliens out of the room. Captain Hayes came over to Jake. "What was that?" "About, Lieutenant?" Jake shook his head. "I don't know, Captain. I've never seen her before in my life." But even as he said it, Jake wasn't sure it was true. Something about the princess seemed familiar, not her appearance. She was clearly alien. But something deeper, something that made his heart beat faster and filled his mind with half-remembered dreams. As Jake walked back to his quarters that evening, he couldn't stop thinking about the princess's golden eyes and the way she had said his name. He had a feeling that his life was about to change in ways he couldn't imagine. He was right. 3 days had passed since the first meeting. Jake had thought about Princess Kirathel every day. He tried to focus on his normal duties, but his mind kept going back to those golden eyes and the way she had stared at him. On the morning of the 4th day, Captain Hayes called Jake to her office. "Lieutenant Morrison," she said, "I have a special assignment for you. Princess Kirathel has asked for a personal escort during her stay on the ship. She specifically requested you." Jake felt surprised. "Me, Captain? Why would she ask for me?" "Captain." Hayes looked just as confused as Jake felt. "I don't know, but this is important for human-alien relations. The princess seems comfortable with you, and that's good for our mission. You'll spend the day showing her around the ship and answering any questions she has." Jake found Princess Kirathel waiting in the observation deck. This was a big room with huge windows that looked out into space. Earth was below them, blue and white and beautiful. The princess stood at the window looking down at Jake's home planet. "It's beautiful," she said when Jake walked up beside her. "Your world looks peaceful from up here." "It is beautiful," Jake agreed, "but it's not always peaceful. Humans have fought many wars on that planet." The princess turned to look at him. In the light from Earth, the patterns under her skin seemed to glow more softly. "All young species fight wars. It's part of growing up. My people fought wars too, long ago." They stood in silence for a while, watching Earth turn slowly below them. Jake wanted to ask her why she had stared at him during the meeting, but he didn't know how to bring it up. Princess Kira Thel made the decision for him. "Jake," she said quietly, "I need to tell you something. Something that will be hard to believe." She reached into her robes and pulled out a small device. It looked like a crystal, but when she touched it, it started to glow. Suddenly, the air in front of them filled with moving pictures, holograms that showed scenes from another world. Jake saw tall mountains and strange trees. He saw buildings that seemed to grow out of the ground like plants. And he saw people, Zephyrians like the princess, but their clothes and tools looked very old. "This is my world, Zephyra, as it was 10,000 years ago," the princess explained. "My people were dying. A terrible sickness had spread across our planet. We had no cure. Our greatest doctors could do nothing." The hologram changed. Now Jake saw Zephyrians lying in beds, their skin dark and lifeless. He saw empty cities and abandoned farms. "We thought it was the end," Princess Kira Thel continued. "Our civilization was about to disappear forever. Then they came." The hologram changed again. Jake's breath caught in his throat. The new images showed tall figures walking through Zephyrian cities. They wore strange clothes, but their bodies looked familiar. Too familiar. They looked human. "We called them the Guardians," the princess said. "They appeared from nowhere, like magic. They brought medicine that cured our sickness. They taught us new ways to grow food. They showed us how to build better machines. They saved our entire species." Jake stared at the holograms. The figures in the pictures definitely looked human. They had the right height, the right proportions. But humans 10,000 years ago were still living in caves and hunting with stone tools. "That's impossible," Jake said. "Humans weren't space travelers 10,000 years ago. We barely knew how to make fire." Princess Kira Thel touched the crystal again. The hologram zoomed in on one particular figure. Jake's heart stopped. The figure in the hologram had his face. Not similar to his face. Not someone who looked like him. It was exactly his face. Same nose, same eyes, same shape of jaw, even the same small scar on his chin that he'd gotten falling off his bike as a kid. "This is Tor-On the Healer," Princess Kira Thel said softly. "The greatest of all the Guardians. The one who saved the most lives. The one our people remember most clearly in our stories and songs." Jake couldn't speak. He stared at his own face, looking back at him from a 10,000-year-old hologram. "When I saw you in that meeting room," the princess continued, "I thought I was seeing a ghost. Tor-On is the most important figure in our history. Every Zephyrian child learns his story. I have studied his face since I was little. I know every line, every detail." "But I've never been to your planet," Jake said weakly. "I've never even left this solar system before this mission." "I know," Princess Kira Thel said. "That's what makes this so strange and wonderful." She touched the crystal again. Now the hologram showed what looked like a temple. The walls were covered with carvings and paintings. All of them showed the Guardians, the human-like figures, doing different things, teaching, healing, building. These are the sacred records, the princess explained, our most holy place. Every action of the Guardians was recorded here. They stayed with us for 50 years. Then they disappeared as suddenly as they had come. Jake studied the images more carefully. He saw the figure with his face teaching Zephyrians how to use new tools. He saw him helping sick people get better. He saw him standing with other human-like figures, planning and building. The Guardians promised they would return someday, Princess Kirathel said. When our people faced their greatest danger, they said, the Guardians would come back to help us again. You think I'm him? Jake asked. You think I'm this Tauron person? The princess was quiet for a long moment. I don't know what I think, but I know what I see. You have his face exactly. And there are other things. What other things? The way you stand. The way you tilt your head when you're thinking. Small things that wouldn't be in any picture or story, but that I recognize anyway. Jake felt dizzy. This was too much to understand. Even if what you're saying is true, how is it possible? Time travel doesn't exist. Doesn't it? Princess Kirathel asked. The Guardians had abilities we still don't understand. They could appear anywhere they needed to be. They seemed to know things before they happened. Our scientists think they could move through time the way we move through space. So you're saying that sometime in the future, I'm going to travel back in time 10,000 years and save your planet? I'm saying that maybe you already did, the princess replied. Time isn't a straight line, Jake. It's more like a circle. Past and future can touch each other in ways we don't expect. Jake looked out at Earth again. His home planet looked the same as always, but everything felt different now. If what the princess was telling him was true, then he wasn't just Jake. Morrison, regular soldier, he was destined for something much bigger. Why are you telling me this? He asked. Princess Kirathel's expression became serious. Because our scientists have detected something moving through space toward our galaxy, something dark and terrible. Our ancient records say that the Guardians came not just to save us from sickness, but from something much worse. Something that eats worlds and stars. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. And you think this thing is coming back? I think it never left, the princess said quietly. I think it's been sleeping, waiting, and now it's waking up. Our people will need the Guardians again, Jake. We'll need you. Jake looked at the hologram again, at his own face staring back at him across 10,000 years. He thought about destiny and time travel and the weight of saving entire civilizations. Then he looked at Princess Kirathel with her golden eyes and worried expression. Something inside him, something he didn't understand, wanted to protect her and her people. It felt like a memory of something that hadn't happened yet. If this is all true, Jake said slowly, then we have a lot of work to do. The princess smiled for the first time since he'd met her. Yes, we do. And Jake? Yeah? Thank you for listening. Thank you for believing. Jake nodded, still trying to process everything he'd learned. Outside the window, Earth continued to turn, peaceful and unaware that one of its ordinary soldiers might be destined to save the galaxy, or maybe he already had. Dr. Amy Chen stared at her computer screen and shook her head. The numbers didn't make sense. They couldn't make sense. But there they were, glowing on her monitor like impossible facts. Captain Hayes, she called across the laboratory. You need to see this. Captain Hayes was standing next to Jake, who sat on an examination table looking uncomfortable. Princess Kira Thel waited nearby with Vexillar, the chief Zephyrian scientist. Everyone had come to the medical lab after Jake told Captain Hayes about his conversation with the princess. "What is it, Doctor?" Captain Hayes asked. Dr. Chen pointed at her screen. "I've been studying Jake's DNA, looking for anything unusual, and I found something that shouldn't exist." She pressed a button, and the wall screen lit up with complex diagrams. Jake's DNA was displayed like a twisted ladder made of light. "This is normal human DNA," Dr. Chen explained, highlighting sections in blue. "But look at these sections." She highlighted other parts in red. "These show signs of temporal displacement." "What does that mean?" Jake asked. "It means your DNA remembers being in a different time," Dr. Chen said. "It's like, imagine you moved a book from one shelf to another. Even after you moved it, you might find tiny marks showing where it used to be. Jake's DNA has those same kinds of marks, but for time instead of space." Vexillar stepped forward. He was an old Zephyrian with many scars on his purple skin. "May I see the data?" Dr. Chen shared her screen with him. Vexillar studied the information for several minutes, his golden eyes moving back and forth rapidly. "Fascinating," he said finally. "This matches what our scientists discovered long ago about the Guardians." "What did you discover?" Captain Hayes asked. "We found traces of the Guardians after they left," Vexillar explained. "Pieces of their equipment, samples of their blood left behind when they helped our wounded. When we studied these samples, we found the same temporal markers that Dr. Chen has found in Jake. So the Guardians were definitely time travelers," Jake said. "More than that," Vexillar continued, "our research showed that the Guardians could step between different moments in time like you might step between different rooms in a building. We called it walking the time streams." Dr. Chen looked excited and confused at the same time. "But Jake's temporal markers are pointing forward, not backward. According to my readings, he hasn't traveled through time yet." "But he's going to," Princess Kira Thel spoke up. "The sacred records mention this. The Guardians told our ancestors that time was like a great river. They said you could step into the river at any point, but you had to be very careful not to change the flow too much." Captain Hayes rubbed her forehead. "So let me understand this. Jake is going to travel back in time someday and become one of these Guardians. But he hasn't done it yet." "Exactly," Dr. Chen said. "The temporal echoes in his DNA are like shadows cast by future events. His future self has already affected his present self." Jake felt strange hearing people talk about his future like it was already decided. "Why me? Why am I the one who's supposed to do this?" Vexillar pulled out his own device and showed them another hologram. This one displayed a complex family tree, but instead of human names, it showed genetic patterns. "Not everyone can walk the time streams," he explained. "Our research showed that only certain bloodlines have the ability. It has to do with specific genetic markers that are very rare." "How rare?" Captain Hayes asked. "Among humans, probably 1 in a million," Vexillar said. "Among Zephyrians, it was even rarer. That's why the Guardians were so special. They didn't just have the knowledge to help us. They had the natural ability to travel through time." Dr. Chen ran another scan on Jake. "His temporal markers are getting stronger. Whatever's going to trigger his ability, it's getting closer." Princess Kira Thel looked worried. "Our legends say the Guardians were forced to act because of a great danger, something called the Void Hunters." "What are Void Hunters?" Jake asked. "Creatures of living darkness," Princess Kira Thel said softly. "They consume everything they touch, planets, stars, entire solar systems. Our ancient records say they came from outside our galaxy, eating everything in their path. Vexillar nodded grimly. The Guardians didn't just save us from disease. They prepared us to fight the Void Hunters. They taught us to build weapons and shields that could hurt creatures made of darkness. Captain Hayes looked alarmed. And you think these Void Hunters are coming back? Our deep space sensors have detected strange readings near the galactic rim, Princess Kirathel admitted. Something large is moving through space and it's headed toward populated systems. Dr. Chen's computer started beeping loudly. She looked at her screen and her face went pale. Jake's temporal readings just spiked, she said. Something big is about to happen. Jake stood up from the examination table. He felt strange, like electricity was running through his blood. For just a moment, he could have sworn he saw flashes of other times, other places, a dying planet, massive ships moving through space, his own hands holding weapons he'd never seen before. "Jake?" Princess Kirathel asked. "Are you all right?" The visions faded, but Jake felt different, like he was more than just Jake Morrison now, like there were other versions of himself waiting in the future. "I'm okay," he said. "But I think I'm starting to understand something." "What?" Captain Hayes asked. Jake looked at each of them. Dr. Chen with her scientific curiosity, Captain Hayes with her leadership burden, Vexillar with his ancient knowledge, and Princess Kirathel with her golden eyes full of hope and fear. "I think the reason I'm going to travel back in time isn't just to save your people from disease," Jake said slowly. "I think I'm going to learn how to fight these Void Hunters by studying what I already taught your ancestors. It's like a loop. I learn from the future to change the past." Princess Kirathel nodded. "The sacred records mention this too. The Guardians said they learned by teaching, taught by learning, past and future connected in an endless circle, but that means," Dr. Chen said, working through the logic, "that Jake will have to figure out how to fight creatures he's never seen, using technology that doesn't exist yet." "Not exactly," Vexillar corrected. "The technology does exist. It's hidden, on our sacred worlds, sealed away and waiting for the Guardians to return. Only someone with their genetic markers can access it." Captain Hayes looked at Jake with new respect and worry. "So you're not just a soldier anymore, Lieutenant. You're our best hope for survival." Jake felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. Two entire civilizations, human and Zephyrian, might depend on him learning to be something he'd never imagined becoming. "When will we know for sure about these Void Hunters?" he asked. Princess Kirathel and Vexillar exchanged glances. "Our scientists estimate 6 months before they reach Zephyrian space," Vexillar said quietly. 18 months before they reach Earth. Jake looked out the laboratory window at the stars. Somewhere out there, ancient enemies were moving through the darkness, hungry and unstoppable. And somehow, somewhen, he was going to have to learn to stop them. The future had just become much more complicated. But as he looked at Princess Kirathel's worried face, Jake felt something he'd never felt before. A certainty that he would do whatever it took to protect her and both their peoples, even if it meant learning to walk through time itself. "Then we'd better get started," he said. The alarm woke Jake from a deep sleep. Red lights flashed in his quarters as the ship's computer announced an emergency meeting. Jake dressed quickly and ran to the main conference room. Admiral Kate Sullivan was there, having just arrived from Earth Command. Her face was serious and tired. Captain Hayes sat at the big table with Princess Kirathel and Vexillar. Dr. Chen was setting up her computer to show data on the wall screen. "Thank you all for coming so quickly," Admiral Sullivan said as Jake took his seat. "We have a situation." The wall screen lit up with a map of the galaxy. Red dots showed where human colonies were located. Blue dots showed Zephyrian worlds. And at the edge of the map, dark shapes moved slowly but steadily toward both civilizations. "Our long-range sensors have confirmed what the Zephyrians suspected," Admiral Sullivan continued. "Something is moving through space toward us. Something big, dark, and unlike anything we've ever seen." She pressed a button, and the image zoomed in on one of the dark shapes. Jake felt his stomach drop. The thing on the screen didn't look like a ship or a space station. It looked alive, but wrong, like a shadow that had learned to move by itself. "We're calling them Devourers," Admiral Sullivan said. "They seem to consume everything they encounter. Asteroids, space stations, even small moons just disappear when these things pass by." Princess Kirathel's skin had gone pale, and the lights under her surface moved in quick, worried patterns. "The Void Hunters," she whispered, "just like in the ancient stories." Vexillar was studying the sensor data with his own device. "The size matches our historical records. These creatures are exactly what our ancestors described." "How long do we have?" Captain Hayes asked. Admiral Sullivan's expression grew even more serious. "At their current speed, they'll reach the outer Zephyrian colonies in 6 months. Earth's outer settlements in 18 months. Jake looked at the moving shapes on the screen. Even from this distance, they seemed hungry and unstoppable. "How many ships do we have that could fight them?" "That's the problem," Admiral Sullivan replied. "Our weapons don't seem to hurt them. We've already lost 3 scout ships trying to get close enough to study them. The ships just disappeared." Dr. Chen spoke up from her computer. "Jake, I've been monitoring your temporal readings since we got the sensor data. They're getting much stronger. Whatever's going to activate your time travel ability, it's connected to this threat." Jake felt that strange electricity in his blood again. Sometimes now, when he looked at the stars, he saw brief flashes of other times. Ancient battles. Weapons that shot light instead of bullets. His own hands doing things he'd never learned to do. "The weapons exist," Princess Kirathel said firmly. "The Guardians taught our ancestors to build them, then hid them on sacred worlds. They knew the Void Hunters would return someday." Commander Ryan Blake, the ship's tactical officer, leaned forward. "What kind of weapons are we talking about? Missiles? Energy beams?" "Something much more advanced," Vexillar explained. "The ancient texts describe weapons that could hurt creatures made of living darkness. Technology that could turn light itself into a cutting tool." Admiral Sullivan looked interested but skeptical. "And you think Jake can access these weapons?" "Only someone with the Guardian genetic markers can activate them," Princess Kirathel said. "The weapons were designed to recognize their creators." "But that creates a logical problem," Dr. Chen said, working through the science. "If Jake hasn't gone back in time yet, how can weapons designed by his future self recognize him now?" Jake stood up and walked to the window. Outside, stars sparkled, peacefully, giving no sign of the darkness moving between them. But he could feel something calling to him from across time and space. "It's not a problem," he said quietly. "It's the point." Everyone looked at him. "I'm starting to understand how this works," Jake continued. "Time isn't like a straight line. For people like me, it's more like a web. Past, present, and future are all connected. The weapons will recognize me because I'm the same person who designed them, even though I haven't designed them yet. Princess Kirathel nodded. The sacred records call it the eternal moment. The Guardians existed in all times at once. Admiral Sullivan rubbed her temples. This is giving me a headache. But if it's true, then we need to get to these sacred worlds as fast as possible. There's something else, Vexlar said hesitantly. The weapons aren't just hidden. They're protected. The ancient systems won't just recognize Jake. They'll test him. He'll have to prove he's truly a Guardian. What kind of test? Captain Hayes asked. We don't know exactly, Princess Kirathel admitted. The records say the tests are different for each Guardian, but they always involve sacrifice, the willingness to give up everything for others. Jake felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's air conditioning. And if I fail the test? Vexlar and Princess Kirathel exchanged glances. The weapons remain sealed, Vexlar said softly, and both our civilizations fall to the darkness. The room went quiet. Everyone stared at Jake, and he felt the weight of two entire species resting on his shoulders. He was just a regular soldier from Earth. How was he supposed to save the galaxy? But then he looked at Princess Kirathel, with her worried golden eyes and the trust she'd placed in him. He thought about his home planet, spinning peacefully in space. He thought about all the people, human and Zephyrian, who would die if the Void Hunters weren't stopped. Where's the nearest sacred world? He asked. Princess Kirathel smiled for the first time since the meeting started. Kethmore. It's 3 days away at maximum speed. It holds the most powerful weapons our ancestors ever built. Admiral Sullivan stood up. Then that's where we're going. Captain Hayes, prepare the Liberty for immediate departure. Princess, I'll need detailed star charts for the journey. Admiral, Dr. Chen said, Jake's temporal readings are still increasing. I think being near the ancient weapons might trigger something in him. What kind of something? Admiral Sullivan asked. I'm not sure, but I think Jake might start remembering things he hasn't experienced yet. Memories from his future self. Jake nodded. He'd already started having flashes of knowledge that seemed to come from nowhere. How to read star charts he'd never seen. How to use tools that didn't exist yet. How to speak words in languages that hadn't been invented. We'll deal with that when it happens, he said. Right now, we need to focus on getting to those weapons before the Void Hunters get to our people. As the meeting broke up and everyone hurried to prepare for the journey, Princess Kirathel came over to Jake. Are you scared? She asked quietly. Jake thought about it honestly. Terrified, he admitted, but not of the tests or the weapons or even the Void Hunters. Then what? Jake looked at her beautiful, worried face. I'm scared of becoming someone else, of losing who I am now and becoming this Guardian person instead. Princess Kirathel touched his hand gently. Jake Morrison the soldier and Toron the Guardian are the same person. You won't lose yourself. You'll just become more than you thought possible. Jake hoped she was right. As the Liberty turned toward the sacred world of Kethmore, he felt his future rushing toward him like a wave. Soon he would learn if he was truly destined to walk through time itself. Soon he would learn if an ordinary human soldier could become the galaxy's last hope. The Void Hunters were coming, and time was running out. 6 months had passed since Jake's life changed forever. Now he stood on the bridge of the UES Destiny, a ship built using both human engineering and ancient Zephyrian technology. The ship hummed with power that felt alive, almost magical. Through the big windows, Jake could see the planet Kethmore below them. It was a beautiful world with purple oceans and silver mountains. But it was also empty now. The Void Hunters had already consumed 3 Zephyrian colonies, leaving nothing behind but dark, empty space. Jake, Dr. Chen's voice came through the communication system. The temporal field is ready. We can send you back in time now, but the window won't stay open for long. Jake touched the device on his chest, the Guardian's amulet that Princess Kirathel had given him. It was made from ancient crystal and metal, and it would help focus his time travel abilities. The amulet felt warm against his skin, like it was alive. Princess Kirathel stood beside him on the bridge. Over the past months, she had become more than just an alien diplomat to him. She had become his closest friend, his teacher, and something even deeper that he was afraid to name. "The sacred armory is ready," she said, pointing to the building they could see on the planet's surface. "The weapons have been waiting 10,000 years for you to return to them." Jake nodded. They had spent weeks on Kethmore, learning about the ancient Guardian technology. Jake had been amazed to discover that he could understand machines and weapons that shouldn't have made sense to him. Knowledge seemed to flow into his mind from somewhere else, from his future self who had already learned these things. The tests had been harder than the learning. The Guardian systems had put Jake through challenge after challenge, testing not just his knowledge but his heart. They had shown him visions of people in danger and forced him to choose who to save. They had offered him power and wealth in exchange for abandoning his mission. They had even threatened to hurt Princess Kirathel unless he gave up. Jake had passed every test by making the same choice every time, put others before himself, no matter the cost. "Captain Hayes," Jake said into his communicator, "are our people ready?" Captain Hayes's voice came back strong and clear. "The combined human and Zephyrian fleet is in position. We'll hold the Void Hunters here as long as we can." Jake looked out at the space around Kethmore. Dozens of ships floated in formation, human vessels and Zephyrian craft working together for the first time. They had new weapons now, built using knowledge Jake had somehow remembered from his future self. But even with the new technology, they might not be able to stop the Void Hunters. The real battle would be fought in the past. "There's something I need to tell you," Princess Kirathel said quietly, "about what happens when you go back." Jake turned to look at her. The lights under her purple skin were moving in sad, slow patterns. "When you return to this time after changing the past, I won't remember our friendship the way it is now. Time will reset itself, and I'll only know you as the legendary Tor-On from our history books." Jake felt his heart sink. "You won't remember the last 6 months? You won't remember us talking, working together, learning about each other's cultures?" "The mind forgets when time changes," Princess Kirathel said softly. "But the heart remembers. Deeper things. I will still feel drawn to you, still trust you, still—" She paused. "Still care for you, even if I don't know why." Jake reached out and took her hand. Her skin was warm and smooth, and the lights under the surface seemed to respond to his touch. "I'll remember," he promised. "Even if you don't, I'll remember everything." "That's what makes this sacrifice so hard," she replied. "You'll carry the weight of our friendship alone." Through the ship's sensors, Jake could see dark shapes moving at the edge of the solar system. The Void Hunters had found them. Massive creatures of living shadow, each one the size of a small moon, drifting through space and consuming everything in their path. "Jake," Dr. Chen called urgently, "the temporal field is becoming unstable. You need to go now." Jake squeezed Princess Kirithel's hand one more time, then let go. When I get back to this moment, what will you think of me? She smiled, and for a moment, the sadness left her golden eyes. I will think you are the bravest person I have ever met. I will think you are someone worth following across time itself. Jake walked to the center of the bridge, where Dr. Chen's time travel equipment was set up. The air around him started to shimmer and bend. He could feel reality getting ready to let him step outside the normal flow of time. Remember, Princess Kirithel called to him, you're not just going back to save my people from disease. You're going back to give them the knowledge they need to build the weapons that will save both our civilizations. I understand, Jake said. The temporal field was getting stronger now. He could see flashes of the past appearing around him, glimpses of ancient Zephyra when it was sick and dying. Jake, Captain Hayes' voice came through the communicator one last time. Whatever happens, we're proud of you. Earth is proud of you. Jake nodded, even though he knew she couldn't see him through the growing temporal storm around him. Then, he looked at Princess Kirithel one final time. I'll find my way back to you, he said. In any time, in any life, I'll find you. The temporal field consumed him, and Jake felt himself being pulled backward through 10,000 years of history. As reality twisted around him, he held on to two things: his love for Princess Kirithel and his determination to save both their peoples. The last thing he saw before the past claimed him was the Void Hunters reaching the outer edge of the Kethmore system, dark and hungry and unstoppable. But Jake Morrison, soon to become Toran the Guardian, was not afraid. He had the knowledge he needed now, learned from his own future actions. He knew exactly what to teach the ancient Zephyrians to prepare them for this moment. As he fell through time toward a dying world 10,000 years in the past, Jake understood finally what it meant to be human. It wasn't about being the strongest or the smartest. It was about being willing to sacrifice everything for others, even people you'd never met, even across impossible distances of time and space. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't technology or weapons. It was love. The love that made someone willing to give up their entire life to save strangers. And in the past, a young Zephyrian civilization would look up at their dying skies and see salvation descending from tomorrow, wearing the face of an ordinary human soldier who had chosen to become extraordinary. Jake Morrison disappeared into yesterday, carrying tomorrow's hope in his heart. In the present, Princess Kirithel watched the space where he had been and whispered, "Come back to us, my guardian. Come back to me." The Void Hunters drew closer, and the battle for the galaxy's future was about to begin. But thanks to one human's courage to walk through time itself, both civilizations now had a chance to survive. Time was a circle, and love was the force that kept it turning.